Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 11th. Welcome to my kitchen, just minutes outside of Philadelphia. I'm Char Nolan, one of the Rouxbe chef instructors, and I'm very happy to welcome you to my live Ask Me Anything event. And we've got some great questions today. And I think looking at my collection of items here that will talk about a couple of interesting things, and I'll probably jump on. I have some notes about assignments and things that are helpful to you when you're doing them. So we have a lot of questions today. So let's just start off the top with a question from Maria. And her question is, she has a question about a food dehydrator. And for those of you who are in Plant Pro, there's a raw assignment and there's one other assignment that doesn't come to me right this second. But do you really need a food dehydrator? So you can go to your local store, wherever you shop, and you can buy a low-end plastic food dehydrator, and it will do the trick, but it won't do it efficiently. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. So after I finished my Rouxbe course and I fell in love with dehydrating, especially making seed crackers and dehydrated cherry tomatoes, because they added so much flavor and color and texture to a dish. So I went on the Facebook for sale site, and I ended up meeting a woman in a parking lot of a shopping center, and I paid $100 for her Excalibur. And Excalibur is sort of like the Cadillac or Rolls Royce of dehydrators, and it was a 5 shelf, which was exactly what I needed because a food dehydrator is rather big. They're usually about 18 inches by 18 inches, and they take up a lot of space in your kitchen. It's efficient. It's remarkable. If it says something's going to dehydrate in 18 hours, it's going to dehydrate in 18 hours. Today, my food dehydrator is in my basement in its box, and I use it maybe 2 or 3 times a year. The next thing is, before I even had a food dehydrator, I would put my oven on its lowest temp, and then I would dehydrate in my own oven. So I would suggest to take a look at that little booklet that comes with your oven and see if you can, in fact, dehydrate. If you're going to buy an Excalibur, that's a decision that you have to make. They run in the arena of about $300. If I were a raw chef, I would definitely probably have 2 of them. So I think that it's a decision that you have to make, and a decision if you believe that the use of an Excalibur or any kind of dehydrator will fit into your lifestyle. So that's what I have to say about that. If you live nearby, Maria, I would give it to you. So that's my question about my answer about the Excalibur dehydrator. I will say that it makes the best seed crackers ever. And when you look at the prices of things like any raw cracker in the world, making your own is certainly very, very cost effective. So this is Lisa D. I love this question so much because everybody wants to start their own business. And I think that the most important thing that I see is following your passion and what it is that you actually want to do, and seeing if it is something that will fit into your community where you work and what you do. I do believe I have attached an article that you could read about setting up, but in a compact nutshell, I will give you these 3 or 4 things aside from following your passion and loving what you do. My children, when they were little, they went to Montessori school. And as you may know, the Montessori sort of ideology is your work is your play and your play is your work. And I sort of have embraced that myself because I learned a lot when my children were in Montessori. So before you set up that business, you want to make a business plan. You want to make sure that that business plan is going to fit into everything that you do. Does your township allow you to get licensure to use your own kitchen to create dishes, or will you be renting a professional kitchen, or will you be using a kitchen in a church, which many people do when they're first starting out? Some of the prices for renting space in a commercial kitchen or an incubator kitchen, as they're sometimes called, can be expensive, so you have to investigate that. You will need to have food handler insurance, which runs about $600 or $700 a year, depending upon the type of plan that you're looking for. I always tell people to check with their homeowner agent to see if there's a way that food insurance can be squeezed into your present situation with your insurance person. And then the most important thing is that you have to take the Safe Serve exam, and you want to get the food handler manager course. So in the event that you have a staff, they are covered by you. So those are a couple of essentials. Your business plan is paramount. And then how do you identify who your target audience will be? And that's another important thing, because sometimes what looks great on paper might not fit into what it is that you want to introduce to whomever. However, I say shoot for the stars, do what you love, get this plan going, create beautiful, beautiful food, as I know Rouxbe students do, and then just take it from there and give yourself a timeline, because setting a timeline for yourself is very important in terms of being organization, getting equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a little bit in a nutshell, but I hope that that is helpful to you. So this is a question from Lisa F. Hello, Lisa. You know I love mushrooms. I attached an article I wrote for Veg World magazine about mushrooms because I live 20 miles from the mushroom capital of the world, Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. So two things. First of all, you want to start out with really fresh looking mushrooms. So yesterday I went to the market and I bought some mushrooms, and I put them in a brown paper bag so they could breathe inside the refrigerator. They were robust looking. They did not smell. Sorry for this noise. I should have taken this off before we started. But if you take a look at these beautiful mushrooms, you can see that they're nice and white. There's no browning on them. There isn't any kind of dirt. They look delicious. They smell really nice. So I look for those, and I like to buy mushrooms that are loose so I can pick out the sizes that I exactly need. However, on the bargain bin at the grocery store yesterday were these baby Bella mushrooms. And the only reason why I bought them is so that you could see what not to buy. Looking at them, I can tell you that they are not healthy looking. And when I gave it the nose test, they had a rather rancid smell to them. So don't buy these. And I won't be using these for anything. They'll probably end up in the compost, but I wanted you to have a really good visual. Best to buy your mushrooms loose. And usually they have baby bellas, they have white button, and they have shiitake. So it's important to pick them out by hand, look at them, and then when you get home, do not wash them. Do not wash them at all. The best way to clean a mushroom is just with a little rag and just sort of wipe off any of the dirt, because when you wash them with water, you're introducing another element for them to not stay as fresh as you want them to for as long as you wish. And that's what I have to say about mushrooms. Mushrooms are delicious. I think one of my favorite all-time Rouxbe recipes is the no oil saute, because I think that that is an assignment that is a cornerstone in learning how to cook without oil. And it's really funny sometimes, because when I am reviewing assignments, sometimes I will sort of chortle because a student will say, I finally like mushrooms because I know how to cook them. So that assignment is really, really good. If you do not like mushrooms, you could do a dry oil saute with zucchini, with summer squash, with eggplant. They have similar textures, and you will see the same result in terms of doing a no oil saute, and you'll see beautifully caramelized vegetables. So that's what I have to say about mushrooms, and I hope you enjoyed that article. Mushrooms are very popular right now. They are in everything. So enjoy the article, and thanks for such a great question. I appreciate it. This is from Jeanette. What are the healthiest pots and pans in the world? So I'm going to say that finding pans that fit your kitchen is almost like a treasure hunt, because you have to find something that fits your kitchen space, something that fits your budget. And I always like to say, start out by either going to a thrift shop and looking for a good stainless steel pan, because, for example, the mushroom assignment suggests heavily that you use a stainless steel pan. But you either go to a thrift shop, or you could go to one of those discount places like Marshalls or whatever, or you could borrow one from a friend to see if you like it. I still have my mother's stainless steel Paul Revere pans that I still use, the ones with the copper bottom, and they're still in fabulous shape, and they are more than 75 years old. So I'm going to show you, one thing that I do like to use. This is a stainless steel pan. I've had this for about maybe 10 years. I have sauteed a lot of mushroom assignments in this pan, and I think that for after 10 years, it still looks rather good. It's still in really good condition. I'm able to clean it easily. And I think that this was probably the best budget purchase I have ever made. Some of you do know that I enjoy cooking with a pan company by Caraway, and I like them because they are coated with ceramic, but they have no microplastics in it. So Caraway might be a way to go, but I still think that stainless steel gives you the confidence in developing some of your culinary skills. So start off small and then graduate to get more and more. And I think that Caraway is having a sale right now, but don't quote me on that. So there we go. This is from the next question is from, this was my most fun question. This is from Diane D, and she is asking about chia seeds. So here are my chia seeds, which I keep in my refrigerator in a jar. You should keep them in the fridge because they do have a natural oil in them. They could go rancid. You want them to stay fresh. Her question was, what's the deal with ground chia seeds? So sometimes they are called chia flour. And this is, I'm going to just do this for you, and you can see this is what they look like when they're ground. And they come out looking like a black flour. And then I'm going to show you the way difference. This is a chia seed egg that I made with the ground seeds, and it's solidified in less than 30 seconds. And here it is like an hour later, and you can see that it would be the perfect egg for something that you were baking. And then here is a traditional chia seed. Their consistencies are relatively similar. I however, have to say that the ground chia seed, I think, is going to do a better job. It does not lose any of its nutritional properties. You know, it still is a great source of your omega-3s. I will say this is a grinder to a Vitamix. And this little 1 quart container, the blade in the bottom goes in the opposite direction to the big one behind me. So if you're going to make flour, like I like to make oat flour, or if you're going to make chia flour, having this 1 quart grinding Vitamix container is probably going to be your best bet. You can buy it online at various health food stores and things like that. So I think that for time's sake, because sometimes I feel as though I'm waiting forever for the chia or the flaxseed meal to congeal to make its egg. This, in terms of time factor, this was just so much quicker. So also, sometimes I hear if I'm making something using a white flour, I'll hear people say, "Ooh, what are those little seeds in there?" So maybe using the chia flour or the ground flour of the chia might be the very best way to go. So that was such a great question. I really appreciated it. So thank you so much for asking. And yes, you can add whole chia seeds, but I think if you do the ground method, you're going to see that your recipe will move along much quicker. So there we go. So Diane D has another good question about black sesame seeds. And as you know, sesame seeds generally come in a whitish yellow and a black. Sometimes you may see them together in a store in a jar where they're called tuxedo sesame seeds, and that's because they have the colors of a tuxedo, black and white. Essentially, they're the same. I think that you have a nuttier, sweeter flavor when you're using sesame seeds like this that come in a jar, keeping this in the refrigerator for the same reason that you're going to keep your chia seeds in the refrigerator. Remember that sesame seeds are a wonderful source of calcium. When I first became plant-based, people who didn't even know me were really concerned about my calcium. Their number one question is, where are you going to get your calcium? So over the years, I now have a full repertoire of vegetables and other things that I cite. There are 177 milligrams of calcium in a cup of cooked kale. In the case of sesame seeds, there's about 100 milligrams of calcium, keeping in mind that you need about 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day. So I think if you sprinkle a tablespoon of these on a salad, you will certainly help to boost your calcium level that way. And the other thing is, I don't remember exactly which assignment it is, but it talks about toasting your sesame seeds. And you toast them in a pan just like this one. And while you're toasting them, the number one thing that you have to do is move them around a lot. And, there are some other questions today about taking good care of pots and pans. And I've turned to wood for doing all of my stirring and everything else. So I'm not using a plastic utensil as I stir if I'm sauteing or whatever. So these wooden spatulas are very, very good, and they're very, very easy to clean. So what I did was I toasted these, and I'm going to pour them in so you can see what they really look like. You see how the color of them has gotten to a deeper brown. And the nice thing about them is that as they are getting toasted, they release their natural oils, which is going to give whatever dish you're making some added flavor. So for example, if you're doing the Asian wild rice salad recipe, you'll see a huge difference in the flavor when you do use a toasted sesame seed. And the other one thing I wanted to say is, as soon as you have achieved the color that you want, you must remove them from the pan, because if you don't, the heat from the pan will continue to cook them and they will burn, and then they will not taste as delicious as you would want them to taste. So that's the deal on sesame seeds, black or white. Black is used in more Japanese foods, more savory foods. The white are used more in desserts. Think of my favorite Italian cookie as a child. I loved it because it had sesame seeds on top. So have fun playing with sesame seeds, and they make a nice garnish. Some people don't understand what they are, so you may have to explain to them, yes, sesame seeds come in black and in white. So there we go. And we go. What is the best type of cutting board? Well, I think this could be a TV show, a debate with a culinary judge. So what I'm going to show you is, there is a lot of controversy right now. Everybody is thinking about plastic, and I think you know that I work on a 4-wheeled kitchen called the Charlie Card at a library in Philadelphia, and all of the cutting boards that they use are plastic. And we clean them well, and when they start to get too many ridges in them, I will order some more to replace them. But this is I think this is about 10 years old. It's made of acacia wood. And I clean it with lemon juice and salt. And I use a half of a lemon as a scrubber. And it's got lemon juice and salt on it. And then I allow the salt to sort of get into the crevices that would clean anything out. However, the other side of it says onions only, because there's nothing worse than going to wherever and biting into a strawberry slice that tastes like an onion. So you do want to have two different designated sides so that your food remains tasty. Bamboo is another suggestion. Apparently, bamboo has sanitary, let's say sanitary labels to it, but I like this acacia wood that I use, and I also like it because it's not very, very heavy. Some of the wooden cutting boards that I have had in the past weigh 5 or 10 pounds. So this one works out perfectly. And remember to designate. I would add garlic to this too as well. So, and where to find them, you kind of have to seek them out. I can't even tell you how many cutting boards I have because I happen to, I would say I might also be a collector of cutting boards, but I love this one the most. So thank you for that very good question. Very good. All right. Diane has got some very good questions today. Diane, I wish you were in my kitchen so that we could answer these questions together because they're just really good questions. And Diane wants to know what the difference is between black beans and black soybeans. Yes, they do look a lot alike, and you will see black soybeans used in a lot of Japanese dishes. The difference is that when you cut through a black soybean, it is white in the middle. And when you cut through a black bean, they will be black. So that's the primary difference. They don't exactly taste the same. If you're on the assignment of the legume where you have to make the two dishes, it might be interesting to make a sweet and savory dish from the black soybeans, but they taste different and they also cook differently. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. This is from, and thank you for that question, by the way. This is from Edna B, who wants to know the best way to cure stainless steel pans. So actually, you don't need to cure stainless steel pans. We think of curing cast iron pans, and that's how the curing became possible. The most important thing when you have a stainless steel pan is how you cook with it, how you clean with it, and how they are maintained in terms of not having any sludge or marks on them. So you do not have to cure stainless steel pans, just cast iron. There we go. The next one is from Diane, another good question. And you know, this is probably a very important question, especially now because so many of us are keeping an eye on food prices and having our food dollars stretched to the maximum so that we can provide really nutrient-dense dishes to our families and that we are not always at the grocery store buying something. So she wants to know, Diane wants to know about cleaning your vegetables. So I'm going to make it really easy. First of all, I think that everybody needs to have a flat bottom bowl like this. This is, I think, this stainless steel. And you're going to fill it with, it's going to be a 1-to-3 ratio. So I would use 3 cups of water and 1 cup of white distilled vinegar. If I wanted to increase the volume, then I would double that same amount. And I would let them soak for maybe 5 minutes. And then I would lift them out and rinse them thoroughly under cold water. And then I would dry them. So if I have, let's say, a head of romaine lettuce, I'm going to then take all of the leaves off of the core or the stem. And then I'm going to dry them and I'm going to store them in a container that might be lined with a linen cloth or something like that. But the nice thing about using this is that you'll be able to put a lot of vegetables in here without filling up your entire sink. And then the most amazing thing about it is that you will be able to see all of the dirt, for lack of a better word, that might be in the vegetables that you want to have. And on a sidebar, sometimes I find myself intrigued by watching cooking videos by people who really don't know how to cook. And the other day, this woman was using kitchen shears to cut green onions or scallions, and the rubber band was still on, and she was talking like she was a Food Network TV personality, and then she was cutting and cutting and cutting, and the rubber bands made it into her whatever she was making, but she didn't even wash anything. So it is really important to wash and dry all of our fruits and vegetables. One other note, strawberries, for example, or blueberries, after you wash them and they are dried on the counter, patted dry with a terry cloth or kitchen towel, you can put them into a mason jar and they will keep for 2 or 3 weeks. So that's probably another good way to save food money and get the best for your dollar on food. Wonderful question. We should all be cleaning our vegetables. Exactly. Good afternoon, Mitch. This is a question from Mitch, who is wondering about the differences between white miso and brown miso. There are many, many different colors of miso. Most of it has to do with its fermentation time. So I am somebody who really likes to use yellow miso, and I like it because it's fermented with barley and with soy, and it's probably the most popular. There is red, which is, excuse me, soybeans, and then it might have a variety of different grains in it. That's why it's really important when you are buying miso to make sure that it is gluten-free, because some of them will use, for example, barley, which is not gluten-free. The other thing I wanted to say, and if you have the opportunity, if you want to take yourself on a sort of like a stagio into the grocery world, H Mart is the world's largest Asian chain grocery store. And I live very near one, and you may have heard me say other times that when I was at Rouxbe, I did a lot of my shopping at H Mart because they had every ingredient that I would ever need. They have a wall of miso. And to remember that there are different types of miso, including chickpea miso, which is equally as delicious, and it sort of gives the same umami. I do, however, suggest to read the ingredient list, because some miso does contain alcohol, and if you have a sensitivity to alcohol, that might be something you would want to steer clear of. But if you have an H Mart near your home, I totally suggest going to visit one. And this reminds me, I got a query from a student earlier this week who was looking for an ingredient that they didn't have at her grocery store, and they weren't sure what they were going to do. And this is what I suggest to many students: if you have a favorite Asian market in Asian restaurant in your community, go in and ask them if you can have a 2 ounces of sriracha, for example, and maybe order some soup to take out and leave them a tip to show your gratitude. But, going to a restaurant and asking to buy something from the back of the house is not strange, and it's a great way to introduce yourself to a new ingredient without having to go to a store and buy something that you may or may not like. So just a little talking tip there. This is from Jennifer K, who wants to know if there is a vegan pesto recipe. There is, and I can't recite it to you off the top of my head, but yes, there is. And I think that if you go into your search engine and write Rouxbe vegan pesto, it will pop up. And instead of using a cheese, of course, you're going to see nutritional yeast and fresh basil and either walnuts or pignoli nuts or pine nuts. and it is a delicious, delicious recipe. So I hope, Jennifer, that you find the recipe, or maybe we can bring it up for you before we finish our discussion today. This is from Mitch about sesame seeds being hulled or unhulled. Black are unhulled. These are hulled. The black sesame seeds are more expensive than the white ones. I don't know the reasoning behind that. So, we discussed this earlier a couple of minutes ago, but just back to sesame seeds. The white ones that you see here are more or less used for sweet dishes. The black for savory, used in a lot of Japanese cuisine. I always suggest to toast them. You can keep them on hand in the fridge. They make a really nice garnish, and they add so much flavor to any dish that you're making. For those of you who are in Plant Pro, the yaki udon, which is my favorite recipe, you can garnish that with sliced green onions and maybe some julienne carrots, but a dusting of some sesame seeds always gives it a really nice appearance. There we go. Oh, this is from Anna Marie T. Good afternoon, Anna Marie. Hope you're well. Can you share some advice for cooking demos? I did my first cooking demo last week. It went very well. The biggest challenge is packing supplies. I tried to be minimalist, but it still seemed like a lot. Earlier we had a question about setting up a business. So one of the things that I didn't mention is that you have to be prepared for a couple of things. And I'm going to give you a couple of basics. Where your building is might not be where your parking is. So you need to have a wagon or some kind of device that you can throw things in and then just pull it along the street to get where you have to go. The other thing is you need to have your food at proper temp. So aside from having a food thermometer, I use an electronic gun, which I find accurate. You've got to have coolers to keep everything at temp. And I even have a cooler on wheels with a handle. So sometimes you may see me walking down a street in Philadelphia pulling a cooler and a wagon, and the wagon has multiple things in it. So I think that finding a way to take your things that you need from point A to point B is probably the most critical thing that most people don't talk about. And I can tell you that with a good heart, like I'm sure you did, you thought you were going to be minimal about packing everything up. And then when you looked at your car, it may have looked like you were going to the shore for a week because you have food, you have your knives, utensils, bowls, etc., etc. I would suggest this to anybody who is looking to do demos is that check and see if your local library has a Charlie cart, because if your library has a Charlie cart, the Charlie cart is equipped just like a kitchen. It has a portable stove. It has an oven top. It has a sink. It has a Vitamix. It has Le Creuset pots and pans. I mean, the list is endless. But even when I teach at a facility that has a Charlie cart, I'm still making lots and lots of lists. And, it begins with creating a menu, a recipe, then going shopping to get everything that you need, trying to stay in budget. And then, is your kitchen okay for pre-prep, or do you have to do everything at the facility where you're going to teach? Do you have handouts to give them? Do you have recipes? Are there photos on your recipes? I mean, it just becomes very, very intricate. I do remember, Anne Marie, when we interviewed you for our graduate highlight in January, that you mentioned that you were going to be doing a demo. So I'm really glad to hear that. I've had the pleasure of meeting Anne Marie, and she is just full of zest and vim and vigor to take the plant-based message to different parts of the world. And I'm really happy to see that you got to do that demo, and I hope that there will be more coming soon. Let's see. Where do I recommend purchasing dried whole spices? Well, again, it's a matter of priority and where you want to get your spices from. A few months ago, Chef Fran Costigan had one of the founders of Burlap and Barrel, a wonderful spice company, a single origin. I don't suggest going to buy spices that come in plastic jars or from the dollar store, because sometimes they might be cut with other things. So I buy my spices from Burlap and Barrel. And I also like the brand by Watkins, which is organic, which I can get at my grocery store. And it lasts a long time and it's fresh and delicious. And I like that. So Watkins or Burlap and Barrel. And do not be persuaded by going to a big box store where they sell jars this size of oregano, let's say, because I'm not sure you're going to go through a quart of oregano before its expiration date. So sometimes buying in bulk like that doesn't always save money. So just a thing. But do check out Burlap and Barrel. And this is from Chef Fran. Always nice to see Chef Fran here. Do I have any favorite St. Patrick Day recipes? Well, actually, I do. And one of them is a plant-based, oil-free, salt-free cold cannon. And cold cannon is essentially potatoes and cabbage. And I also use peas. And it has a lovely flavor, and maybe I'll post a picture of it on our social media. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Rouxbe Plants and at Rouxbe. And also check out today's photo by Chef Fran and a beautiful dessert that one of her students made. I also, Chef Fran, like to take a basic pancake batter that I might make myself and add some caraway seeds to it and make shamrock shaped pancakes. And so they're a little bit more on the savory side, but they're still very, very delicious. I have an Irish surname, and I will also recommend that the Rouxbe barbecued seitan roast can be manipulated with different recipes to create something equal to a corned beef. So if you have not done that recipe or you haven't tried it, I definitely say take a look at it, because the recipe was developed by Chad Sarno. And this recipe, while time consuming, is a wonderful learning experience, but it renders the most delicious final dish. So those would be my three. The other thing, Fran, and I don't know if this has been your experience since moving to Philadelphia, but when I moved to Philadelphia, I had no idea what an Irish potato was. I thought an Irish potato was a potato on a plate, but here in Philadelphia, an Irish potato is a candy that is made from sugar and I believe coconut, and then it is covered in cinnamon, and they look like little potatoes, but I have actually made a plant-based version without coconut, and they look almost identical. And it's been a while since I've had a traditional Irish potato, but mine taste pretty good. So lots going on in the city of brotherly love around St. Patrick's Day. Okay, this is from Tony C. Hi, Tony. How are you? Any suggestions on what one should cook for their first online cooking class? Well, before that, make sure that you have really good audio and video. And sometimes you might want to work with two cameras instead of one. You might want an overhead so that people can see what you're doing. And then you might want to have a frontal just like this one so that you can engage with the people who attend your event. My one experience, and during COVID, both Fran and I did a lot of cooking classes online via Zoom. And the one thing is that the attention span of people in their own kitchen when the phone is ringing and other things are going on might be too time consuming. So you have to make it almost short and sweet. And that will be very, very helpful. Sending recipes in advance, sending ingredient lists in advance is also very, very helpful. And also, I always like to cook something that I've made 4,000 times so that I know how it tastes. I can answer any questions about its texture, its flavor, its aroma, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll be interested, Tony, to see what it is that you're going to be teaching. So let us know and keep us apprised, because it really, really is lots of fun to see how our students are out in the world doing really fun and wonderful and meaningful things in many different types of communities, all taking what they learned from Rouxbe and putting it on a plate for others to enjoy. So I really appreciate hearing that. This is from Diane, and Diane's question is, when do you need to use a vegetable brush to clean produce in addition to the vinegar soak? How do you clean a vegetable brush? Well, let's go back and say that not every vegetable needs a brush. And I'm going to just, one of these days, Patrick and I are going to set up my kitchen so I can do a live demo for you. But I just wanted to say this. Sometimes if I buy apples or cucumbers, I will have a kettle of boiling water, and I will take a skewer and I will put it into the very top of an apple, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And then I will pour hot water over it to remove any wax that might be on the apple. So scrubbing an apple with a brush would not remove the wax, but that hot water will remove it, and you'll see all of the sludge and residue in the bottom of your bowl. So, whoops, sorry about that. So the question is, when do I use a vegetable brush? I use a vegetable brush if I want to scour something like celery, something that's hard. If I want to get those sweet potatoes really, really clean, because I eat the skin, I'll scrub them really, really well to take off any little viney, spines that are on it, or any dirt that might be part of its residue, because I just want to throw it into the air fryer or the oven and have it go. So potatoes, celery, things that are hard. So I don't clean onions because we can peel them off in layers and they always look pristine and clean and taste delicious. So there we go. How do you clean a vegetable brush? You can use hot water, and you can use a little bit of vinegar. You can soak it the way that you clean any other brush that you might have, and finding that helpful. And if it starts to look dirty and dingy, it's time to get a new vegetable brush. So there you go. And excuse me. No, this is from Mitch, and he wants to know if I use sorghum. He recently found some black sorghum and learned that it's very high in antioxidants, like hundreds of times more than blueberries, and adding it to salads. So I do not use sorghum. Chef Fran, I would say, is the expert on sorghum. And I think that we... I have an article on sorghum, Mitch, and I know how to get a hold of you, so I will make sure that you receive that information. I think, looking at one last thing. I'm a regular cauliflower user. In your assignment for roasting vegetables, I noticed that some people will use the bag of pre-cut cauliflower and broccoli. And how do I know? Because if you don't cut the edges off, they're going to be brown and they're not going to make your broccoli taste as good. But sometimes cauliflower seems as though it could be filled with effort. So this is, sorry for that noise. This is what happens after you take that head of cauliflower and you turn it on its side like this, and you smack it down about 4 to 6 times. It's going to be in its plastic wrap. And when you open it up, all of the florets will come off of the stem. And then you're probably saying, well, what will you do with this? So I will clean any of the dirty leaves or take them off. And I can do one of two things with this. I can braise this with some onion and garlic. And then when it's finished, I can puree it and make it into a really delicious tasting dip. Or if I want to, I can just save it in this plastic bag and I can use it for making stock. So I'm going to post the video today on Facebook on all of the sites for Forks Over Knives, for Plant Pro and Pro Cook, so that you can enjoy this 15-second video to see how cooking with cauliflower can be made easier for you. So I hope that you will enjoy that. And next week, I believe it's Chef Dan. Always fun. Don't forget to check out Chef Dan has an article in the most recent issue of Forks Over Knives magazine. And I think that is it. Thank you very much to everyone today for contributing such interesting questions. And I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. By the way, my husband's name is Patrick. And yes, he was born on St. Patrick's Day. So we never go out to eat on his birthday because it's not very easy at all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Char Nolan, signing off from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And I'll see you the next time.